Hi guys, welcome to the Improvement Season podcast. It is me, Steve Hall, and over the other side is Pascal Floor. How's it going, Pascal?
Yeah, good. I came to a kind of a, not really a revelation, but I just realized how stupid I've once again been.
Oh no, what?
And so I was very, very surprised that my scale weight after the diet break, it went down again just nicely. And then the week after that, it actually jumped up by a lot, right? And this is something that I told you. And then I actually showed you my update pictures, which were so much better than the weeks prior to that. So I was just like, what is going on here? Something is wrong. And nothing has changed in regards to any of my variables, right? Everything was the same. So also stress levels. And I was just like, something is off. Maybe it is stress being elevated without me kind of feeling it or perceiving it that way. And then, and I didn't really think that it had such a big impact. I moved my scale, but not in the room. So not from one room to the next, just in the room itself. And I, just by accident here 2 days ago, I stepped off the scale and it's still stuck at 1.6 kilograms. And I was like, And you know those scales, sometimes they are then going back to zero after a while, right? So it's kind of that tear where you're just like stepping on it, then you have to wait before you're actually getting on that. So that's what I've done because it always needs to reset itself before I'm now stepping on it, which wasn't the case before I actually did it the entire time. So this is what I've done yesterday and today, and this is much more like it now, much more like it where my scale weight should be. So below the 79 kilogram mark, so 78.8, and while I was doing that, just add 1.6 kilograms on top of it, and I was just like, what is going on? What is going on? Why am I so heavy, right? And I didn't expect, and I know that when it comes to talking to clients and saying like, okay, always try to use the same scale. And I also know that moving the scale around from one room into the next or so can have a huge impact. But our bathroom is the same floor and surface everywhere, and it's not like, I don't know, wobbly or anything like that. Thus, I didn't really expect that it could have had that impact, but it did. Only moving it like from one corner to, or not really corner, but just from the middle of the room to the outside of the room did enough to actually cause me to seem like I'm weighing 1.6 kilograms more, while in reality, I'm still on track with everything. And yeah, this was my short story in regards to my stupidity.
I just think that, one, it's kind of funny, kind of frustrating, but it's funny now, and it's funny because you did all the right things in this situation, even with that annoying data there. But I think this is unbelievably valuable for anyone who's dieting and listening, who thinks they're doing everything right and the scale's not coming down, because they, like you said, there could just be something. But if every other data point is like tick the box that you're losing fat, don't rush and make a change. And I know exactly what you're talking about, and I bet loads of listeners know exactly what you're talking about, because my scale's the same. So I know before, Charlotte has maybe cleaned in the bathroom before and she's knocked the scale, and then I jump on and I'm like, that scale weight's weird. So then all I do is get off and like lift it up, and then it resets to zero, and then I get on, and then I'm like, now that's the reading more I'd expect. So I think it's just a good note that that's how like a lot of the digital scales work now. So if you've got a really weird reading, maybe try resetting it, getting back on, and like that, or you can do that every time if you wanted to. But yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And again, just to reinforce, you looked at photos, everything was looking right. Nothing else in your routine was suggesting that things weren't going right. So you stuck to your guns. You didn't make any modifications. You didn't let that stress you out. And here we are, and we've realized there wasn't a wish to come. It was already there, but you've just seen it now.
The good thing is also, for a little bit of context for the listener, because we've been to Bristol here over the last weekend, so not this one, but the previous one, so when this episode comes up. And this is exactly what I told you, right? That's I can't explain it because nothing, like seriously, nothing had changed. I was still eating the same foods at the same time. There wasn't any kind of additional stressor. I was training at the same time, so I wasn't really feeling super lethargic or stressed. Sleep was going great. Nothing, like honestly, nothing changed, and that was why I was so skeptical about that. Where I was like, it doesn't make sense, and because of that, I'm not going to change my calories or up the cardio because it doesn't really reflect of what I'm seeing, first and foremost on the physique pictures, but also it doesn't make sense to every other variable because I was ticking off the boxes. I was losing at a very good pace, and you're not going from losing 1% of body weight to 0 or even gaining weight. No way, without having made any kind of significant change to something, right? And this is the beauty about them being so much on track, and this is something that we could talk about even, where people are always like, yeah, I don't know, flexible dieting, intuitive eating, yada, yada, yada. And tracking is sometimes not the best thing that you can do. And I know that intuitive eating doesn't necessarily mean that you can't track or so, but for the robotic lifestyle I'm living at the moment, it gives me joy, happiness. I'm actually very satisfied with doing something like that. And the good thing now was that I was so much on point over the previous weeks that I could tell for certain that I'm hitting or ticking the boxes. And because of that, I could say that this is weird and this is not reflective of what is truly going on. And that's why I could make the right call and not reducing the calories or upping the overall activity, which would have been the case if you're not that much on point, because then you need to always question yourself like, okay, is it because X changed or Y changed, or didn't I really take care of my sleep? Was it because I was sleeping 2 hours on average less here this week, right? And when there are so many fluctuations in your day-to-day basis or weekly routines, then it could, of course, be that you are still very blind, even though that you're tracking data.
Yeah, it's one of those, we talk about it specifically for like peak week, because there's so many variables that can impact the physique. And so it's like, just keep so many things the same and just change like carbohydrates essentially, and maybe a bit of water and acutely some sodium. Otherwise, you just don't know what's doing what. So the great thing is, in your case, it wasn't like you knew what your steps were, you knew your cardio was, you knew your weight training, you knew your hours of sleep, and you are very, very consistent, and that leads to very predictable outcomes typically. And this is why for people who have very topsy-turvy, I don't know a better term than that, but very all over the place lifestyles, they're traveling all the time, they've got like team dinners or drinking events. It's just such a hard lifestyle to try and kind of gather all that together and move forward. It's just so unstructured. And that's why for especially bodybuilders, we thrive off structure, and we have to get more and more structured towards the end. And I think Gen Pop can also take that upon themselves, and they don't need to be as rigid and as structured, but just using some of those tools can make the difference between being completely clueless to their results to actually being like, I'm tracking my body weight and calories, and so I have a rough idea of what's going on. So yeah, it's so valuable, and I'm glad. I bet that's giving you a bit of. Did you sigh a bit of relief? I bet that was.
Yeah,
nice.
I was just saying to Katie, like, okay, I wasn't weighing over 80 anyway, or in the end. I'm actually now below 79 kilograms, which is very cool because for 1.5 weeks, the weight was actually going up, and I was just like, what is going on? So 3 weeks ago, I hit my new lowest weight, which was 79.6, I think, right? So in that period of time, you're expecting that you are way lower than by that time, or at least consistently around that. And I was just like, it seems off, right? And now it's such a relief because I know that I'm still on track with everything and that I don't need to pick up the pace or anything like that. So I'm still very much on track, which is very cool because that means that I can take a longer prima phase at some point, probably, because right now, when looking at the pictures without flattering light, I'm in a very good spot for being that far out. Like, honestly,
yeah, it's something I'm kind of nervous for it. So part of me is like, it's just like taking a diet break, right? You're kind of like, oh, my momentum's good, I'm feeling good, I don't want to take the diet break. And sometimes in hindsight, you can imagine that the right call probably would have been taking the break. And same with the primer phase, the maintenance phase. I'm looking at it now and I'm already feeling, I keep having to hold myself back and be like, no, I'm kind of not in prep yet. Kind of the prep starts after that primer phase, but I'm almost incorporating the primer phase into the prep as a whole. And it's going to be, I'm glad in some ways because you're also going through that, but because I know when it comes, I'm going to be like, I'm just going to push through. But for both of us, if we ended up pushing through that, we know we'd be ready too early for what we wanted.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Realistically, we're not going to produce the best package. I just spoke to Andrew Chappelle on the podcast yesterday, which will come out in a number of weeks. And he was talking through his entire prep, and it was 11 months, his entire prep. But he had 2 months in there, which is effectively like a 2-month diet break where he was maintaining. And he didn't necessarily say that was going to be a diet break, but he kind of reflected and he was like, that was important for me to be able to do 11 months because realistically, I'm not going to be able to sustain 11 months of dieting. And he had never quite planned to do as many shows as he did. He didn't plan to do WNBF Worlds. He was just planning to compete earlier in July. And then Worlds was October or November, or it was in November in the end in New York. So that kind of, it's just like the analogy of refueling the car is so true. We've done a chunk of the journey. We're going to be in a very prime position, but we're going to refuel. We're going to get rid of all the kind of fatigue as best we can because likely we'll still hold on to a bit, but we're going to be in a much better position to be way more efficient going into the rest of prep. And I'm excited to take people through that journey because I think it's slowly becoming more and more clear that bodybuilders can be a little bit like and take principles of periodization from other sports in which I don't think we really did and understood the value of that before. And with more and more realizing the benefit of non-linear dieting approaches, especially in the context like bodybuilding, it's becoming more and more clear that when you're that lean, having some periods of time away is definitely going to help recharge the batteries to move forward. So yeah, it's super exciting. I'm so glad as well that things are going so smoothly on your end because you'd had a turbulent time before. And I think it's just so, there's so much credit to you, to the number of months, like the last year before this, where you just were on point and you didn't do anything silly at all. Like people do mini cuts inappropriately, all of that. And you've learned so much from that. And the reason that's really cool is because now you're going to take that into future off seasons and future contest preps, but also everyone who's been watching the improvement season for so long can now look at that and be like, like you can not have the most ideal periods in life, but then things can work out. And you now are, like you said, it's been the smoothest cut you've ever done in your life, which that's just credit to how you organized everything in the last number of months before this.
Yeah. And I was still playing with the thought of actually competing at the Novice Show UK DFBA in May.
Oh, yeah.
But the thing is, why? I mean, I'm aiming for the other shows anyway. And do I really want to be in shape already at the end of May? Like in proper stage shape and then drag it all the way into August, September? I think that would be too much already.
I think it's tempting to do, it's so tempting to do loads of shows. But you have to realize every time you do a show, there's stress involved with that, especially if you do peak. There's tons of additional stress involved with that. But there's travel, there's all of that manipulation, there's you can't train as hard that week. It's not going to be a productive dieting week. So you have to, it's like a bit of a game of chess, like pick your moves. You can't just constantly do all of these things. I was saying the same to Charlotte, like, I don't know right now if I can compete in the BNBF this year. So I will just have the UK DFBA, and it might be one, if I do the qualifier in August and I qualify for finals, I will literally just have that qualifier and finals, and there'll be no other shows unless I decide I may well do some MPA shows because I can compete with them and they're a great organization. So because of talking to Andrew, he did like, I don't know, like 5-6 shows or something, and I was like, it was really cool to see him do that many, and he got loads of experience. So I don't know. I'm kind of thinking, is there any other things I can do? And he's a natural pro bodybuilder. He competed in non-drug tested federations and did incredibly well. Whereas I know if I was to go and stand on the PCA stage or something, they'd be like, who's this guy? Are you sure you were meant to be here?
I think though, for female competitors, it is still absolutely all right to compete at the PCA. I don't know why. I think because it's just a great show, right? It looks good, especially the photos that you're getting afterwards. The lighting is great. And I think that's why many competitors are drawn towards the PCA. And also then, especially for females, there are some who do take something and some who don't, right? And thus, why not? I have one of my clients, she will be competing at the PCA as well. But when it comes to males, I think the discrepancy is just like too huge.
The only natural I'm aware of, and I think he won an overall at the PCA, but he's a natural pro heavyweight competitor. And he's Soul, I can't remember his last name, something like King Soul, I think is his Instagram. Mm-hmm. And he came second to Ben Howard at the overall at the UKDFPA finals. And if you're not someone like that, then competing up against people on the PCA is just a difficult stage. So it's kind of nice that there's not that many different ones around the UK, because then it's like super competitive and everyone's kind of in the same boat. But at the same instance, that you don't get quite as much experience going through the different feds. But yeah, we have to see how things go. And how's training going? How's strength holding? What's happening on that front?
I mean, I don't need to talk too much about training because it's going all right. When I was over in the UK, actually, I had very good training sessions in the UK. I don't know whether it is due to the fact that you've been in a different environment and thus you've maybe picking the more appropriate loads instead of the ones that you are normally handling, and then you're holding maybe onto those loads, because it felt these were two great sessions. Or maybe it was just due to me training at a slightly later time and also without any kind of stress sitting in the back of my mind, so to speak, because whenever I'm getting up in the morning, it's like, okay, I want to be at home at that time because I still want to have breakfast with my family. Then I need to actually take care of Tony when Hugo is being brought into the kindergarten. So maybe it was just like because I've been a little bit more relaxed. But other than that, it's going well. It's the typical thing when I'm coming back from the UK that the training sessions are feeling a little bit harder. But yeah, finally, I'm able to actually push into a week 4 now, because the previous mesocycles, the two, were interrupted by just sickness. And finally, I'm able to push into week 4 now, is what I want to say. But yeah, what about yourself? How are things going on your end?
Yeah, diet-wise, very smoothly. So, I mean, I didn't have the scale interruption, so I have been moving along fairly nicely. In the first mesocycle, 6 weeks on average, I think I was down like 1% every single week in terms of body weight loss per week. And now it's slowing down as I expected. And I did increase my calories by 100, so not very much. So I am purposely slowing it down because I think I don't know, it's hard. I don't want to say it because I think I'm leaner than I think I am. Like, I think I'm getting down into like the low teens now, which is quite exciting. And I don't want to be losing. Like, I kind of want to keep aggressive because that's what we're all like. We wanted to be leaner yesterday, but I know I need to actually purposely slow it down, which is a good position to be in, like yourself. We don't want to, like 1% of weight loss per week is actually very aggressive, especially when you're a heavier individual. Like, but for anyone, that's an aggressive rate of loss. So yeah, that's coming down. And so diet's absolutely fine. Nothing else has changed. Like cardio, I'm still not doing any, but my steps are just stupid high because of the dog and everything. So I doubt I'll ever need to do much cardio just because of that high step count. I have found that I'm pretty good until like my window of feeling very good and productive is closing a little bit. Okay. So previously, like the walk that I do with Ada and Charlotte in the evening, which is at like 7:30, between 7:30 and 9, depending on how late Charlotte is back. Typically, I feel good on that walk and I'm like busting it out and I'm fine. Whereas recently I've noticed I'm not dragging my feet as such, but I just haven't got that spring in my step anymore. And on that walk, I'm noticing I am getting hungry and I'm thinking about dinner, whereas previously I wasn't. So I am noticing some of those kind of diet fatigue factors starting to sink in, and something I actually made a story and then deleted it all because I was like, I'm just blabbing here, but I can talk about it a bit more clearly here, was how I've noticed I need to start I have structure in my day with all my meals bar my evening meal. That evening meal, I'm always leaving it just in case me and Charlotte want to do a meal together or whatever. And I've noticed if I don't plan that meal, I end up overthinking that meal far too frequently. And I check my MyFitnessPal and I'm kind of playing macro Tetris with that small gap. It's just stressing me unnecessarily. It's making me more food focused than I need to be. So I've kind of said to myself, I just need to say, I'm either having eggs or salmon with veg. Like, that is my evening meal. I don't need to overcomplicate it any more than that. And 9 times out of 10, that's what it ends up being anyway. And I don't end up eating with Charlotte. So I've just noticed some of the diet fatigue is starting to pick up, where I'm just feeling a little bit more lethargic, a little bit more hungry, and I have to like refocus myself. And also really trying to emphasize when Charlotte asks how I am when we like meet up, in my mind, I'm like, I want to tell her how hungry I am and like that I'm a bit low on energy. I'm dragging my feet a bit, and I'm consciously telling myself, don't say that because you're like positively reinforcing that's going to be how you feel. So just tell her that you're feeling good and like the day's been well and that sort of thing. So yeah, the diet is, I said to you, the honeymoon phase for me is over.
I find it very interesting that you are doing a little bit of positive self-talk. Because this is, I mean, everyone kind of knows that, right? Everyone has heard it at some point. Like, okay, don't look at things negatively or in a pessimistic manner, but more so look at it from a bright side and try to reshape it for yourself so that you actually have a better time when it comes to this. Thing is, though, that hardly anyone is doing that. And I think that it takes a lot to actually be then at that point where you are doing that, because I could imagine that when you're not used to doing that, when you have never experienced anything that is resembling any kind of benefits in regards to that you feel stupid in doing so.
Hey guys, hope you're enjoying the podcast. Just wanted to take one moment of your time to actually talk about our coaching services over at Revive Stronger. We at Revive Stronger, we offer an incredible premium personal coaching service just for people like you, and I know you will love it. Do you want to work with us? Here's what I need you to do. Head over to revivestronger.com. Go up to the coaching tab, click on online coaching. Once there, read through the requirements and what it takes to be an online client. Once finished, hit apply now and you're only one step away from applying to our services. Fill out the Google form and you're done. And that was basically it. A coach is going to reach out to you shortly, and then it's Team Revive Stronger.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad I'm doing it now when it doesn't feel so forced, because generally it's really not that bad right now, because then at least we'll practice for when it truly is going to be very hard. And we hear it all the time with bodybuilders and coaches and competitors where it's like, like you have to go to war, it's going to be death, this sort of thing. And Andrew Chappelle, we talked about it on the podcast. He did a recent post on Instagram, and I really liked it because he's a natural pro. A lot of people listen to him, and he's a coach. And he was saying how he just thinks that's the wrong attitude to have. As a coach, you don't tell your competitor, you're going to suffer. This is going to be a grind. You're going to go to war on stage. It's going to be hell. You're in the trenches. And he was like, come on, like, you're not helping that client by telling them that, because they're automatically going to feel that way then. It's kind of that negative affirmation. Now you're going to feel negative. Rather tell them, like, we're going to make this as smooth a ride as possible. It's going to be as easy as it can be. When you get to those stages, there's going to be some really challenging times, and expect to feel like it's hard, but don't kind of set yourself up for that. And I think there's like, I don't know, it's a bit of an old school bro mentality again, where we're just brutes and we're like, nah, it's going to be death. I want to feel like shit, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, we've talked about this so much on the podcast before. Absolutely. So it was great to hear him say that too.
Yeah. So funny enough, I had one client check-in here today, and she's prepping at the moment, and she's doing very well. So shout out to Krista. If you're listening, she's doing very well. We are absolutely on time. We've already exceeded her stage weight like 3 or 4 weeks ago her previous stage weight, and we still have 11 weeks to go. Right? So basically, she's going on holiday, I think in 2 or 3 weeks, and this is the time where she worked for it to actually have a diet break, a prolonged diet break of 8 days. So I brought up an analogy, and this is something that I want to share with you, and this has something to do with war, but just because I couldn't think of anything else. So probably there's a better way in phrasing that, but I didn't bring it up because I think that we are hardcore and we are going to war, because I find it, sorry if I'm offending someone, but I find it utterly ridiculous if someone talks about weight training that way, and like as if you are doing military service and you're going to, I don't know, participate in the Second World War on the front. It's I can't even really grasp it, how you can actually have that mentality. Yes, you're feeling like a strong mofo in the gym when you are shouting and when you're rapping it out and stuff, but actually it's quite ridiculous. This is the pinnacle of showing our status in the world at the moment. This is that we can think that we are hardcore and going to the gym just shows in what a luxury position we are in, right? That being said, though, what I said to her is, now that you're taking, or you deserved that diet break, I want you to think of it that way. You are at the front. You are in war, right? But right now, you're not in the battle zone. Still, war is happening out there, right? War is happening. There are Right now, though, you're not in a field where there are explosions around you, people dying, people shooting and stuff. But right now, you are in a secured position, in a secured spot. That doesn't mean that the war is over. You're just in a secured spot. Right now, you can finally relax, refuel your energy systems, so that you can go out and go into the next front or battle zone, right? And that is then the last push to stage. I know, once again, this is a war analogy. I don't mean it as coming across hardcore or so, but I thought that this is the appropriate thing to make, or to deliver the message, in that you are still absolutely in prep, even though that you're now going on holiday and that it is a diet break. Things are still severe around you, and your body is still in a severe state where it rather would like to actually eat a little bit more and relax completely and be at home, be out of the danger zone, right? But in that scenario, I thought it was appropriate. What do you think?
No, I completely understand it. It's the whole, when people hear diet break, they can think of it the wrong way and let things loose, but especially when she's in a position she's in, if she was to go to, like, I don't know, intuitive eating or something along those lines, when you think about that, her body's just going to be very hungry. Even if when she eats up to maintenance calories, she's still going to be hungry, because she's still in that deficit state. The body still wants to get back to homeostasis. It's still stressed, but it's going to be more relaxing. And if she is listening to this before she goes away, I can remember going to Rome in 2017 with Charlotte, and it was great. And that was like a diet break period for me. And I was very lean, but I still enjoyed the time. And because you're busy on your feet a lot of the time, I imagine she will be as well. It's still a very enjoyable time and very pleasant. So hopefully she's not stressing about it and actually can act as an excellent de-stressor, so she can go and defeat the enemy.
Yeah, absolutely.
The only thing I was going to mention about my training is that I'm at a point with some of my lifts where I am really trying to hold on to them. And I think it's like a slight ego thing, and a slight, like, I just need to accommodate the fact that I've lost almost 20 pounds and my leverages have probably changed a bit. And I mean, I'm just in a deficit, so I'm just weaker, and my strength in the gym is just not there. So for something like my squat, I was squatting the same amount, like however many months ago, with 20 pounds more on me. And I'm still trying to keep that up. And what I've noticed is potentially I've ended up increasing the number of breathers that I'm taking. Okay. And that, especially last time I squat, it particularly felt hard, and I felt it more in my joints than usual. And I think I would just probably change my technique a bit to try and keep the load. And I think in those cases, it's just worth just being like, right, I'm just going to reduce the load by 10%. and I'm just going to actually get the stimulus for the quads, because what's going to retain actually the tissue better, not just keeping the load on for keeping the load on, it's keeping the load on the quads as best I can and training to my actual RAR. So I'll see how squats go this next week, but that's definitely something I'm considering. And then bench press as well. That's one of the lifts where that started to take a little hit. I'm kind of just maintaining performance at the moment, whilst RAR is even coming down. So as fatigue builds up, it's just leveling out. The fatigue is causing my RAR to go down along with the weight loss. So everything else is good. This is where machine work really shines in a deficit, because you can really just grunt it out almost like a hack squat. You just don't lose strength in the same way on a hack squat as you do with a barbell squat. There's just something about the fact you're locked into a machine where you can really, really focus, whether or not you can somehow gut out a little bit more intensity when you're on there. You just have that extra gear somehow. I'm not sure, but though every lift's maintaining pretty damn well, it's just squats and my bench press. And good mornings I changed, so I can't really talk too much about good mornings.
But these are the two that always take a hit so slowly. I told you like 2 weeks ago or so that I switched from the Smith machine squats over to the leg press, just because, I don't know, my legs were very wobbly, and formerly it was just the incline press. This is where I then moved over to like more so machines where even less of the stabilization part is involved in the lift itself. And it's just sometimes, and I think more and more that it's absolutely appropriate to do so.
And I think sometimes, like you did there, and I'm not saying you necessarily did this, but it certainly helped me in my last prep where I was changing movements every mesocycle. So I was completely ignorant to whether or not I was losing any strength, because I just change a movement, and it wasn't a huge change necessarily, but I changed it, so I wasn't aware that performance came down. So sometimes, like in the position you are, or maybe with my squats, I could say, you know what, it's actually going to hurt my ego a lot, it's going to hit me psychologically to reduce the load on that. Maybe I'll actually just move to a Smith machine squat so I don't feel so attached to that load. And whilst yes, you might be just being ignorant to the fact your strength is coming down, if you know you're doing that and you feel better for it, and I think you mentioned as well, your mind-muscle connection and the tension on the muscle felt better, then I think that's absolutely fair game. Because when you are in a deficit, you're really fighting to just maintain tension on the muscles. And if that allows you to keep doing it, allows you to enjoy training in a deficit's not the most fun anyway. So I can absolutely understand that.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Should we go over to questions?
Yes. Cool. Let's get to some questions. So I have, do we have any Patreon supporters? I think it's mostly just Andrew. Oh, we do. Okay, actually, let's get to Andrew White.
Okay.
Because this is a different Andrew who is a supporter. He said, what are all the possible routes to take during a massing phase once you start gaining too quickly? And specifically, is it ever appropriate to reduce calories slightly during a mass to correct gaining rates? Or is a mini cut always in order once someone has put on a bit too much fat?
There are a lot of answers to this question, I believe. And I have a very hard time starting off with actually giving a proper answer. So first and foremost, no, a mini cut is not always the answer. I think that you can only get away with doing so many mini cuts in 1 year even. Right? If you are ending up doing like 4 or 5 mini cuts, I think that you will probably bite yourself in the foot when it comes to that, and you will negatively impact the overall progression that you can do. So I think that mini cuts is a tool, but it shouldn't be a tool that is being used too frequently. That's just my opinion on the matter. When it then comes to the overall rate of weight gain and then slowing it down, absolutely, I think there's nothing wrong with that. This is something just theoretically speaking, right? You are transitioning into a gaining phase, and you feel good, and you increase the calories, and all of a sudden you are in a 500 caloric surplus. So 500 caloric surplus, and you are gaining over the 0.5% of body weight gain per week. I mean, wouldn't you want to make any kind of adjustments? Do you then just take it as it is and be like, all right, now I'm gaining like above 0.5%. But because I'm now already at that caloric intake, I can't reduce it. That doesn't really make sense, right? Of course, you're adjusting on the fly because sometimes also variables in your life change. And that's where then the adjustment comes into play. Nothing is always then set in stone. And this is also something that you unfortunately see with coaches who just give out cookie cutter programs and just like typical meal plans to each and every one of their clients, but they actually have no idea what individualization means. When you take a look at my client roster, and this is not to my own horn or so, right? But this is something, of course, you have a general baseline where you start off with nearly every one of your clients. Even there, it may deviate slightly, but it's probably not like extremely different because you will get to know the individual, and also most people are somewhere in the same ballpark. That's why you're working with a certain population. Right? It's not that all of a sudden you're working with someone who's 60 years old and who has never lifted before, but then at the same time you're working with the most genetic competitors out there. Probably not happening, right? So everyone that you're working with is then most of the time in the same ballpark. And when it then comes to making those adjustments, right, after a while, the programs and the nutritional intake and the strategies moving forward will look completely different. And these are minor changes that you do over time. It's not that you are going from one extreme to the next, like, oh shit, I'm gaining way too fast. Now I'm reducing it to only 100 calories in a surplus. All of a sudden, you're gaining too slowly, and then, no, okay, let's bump it up to 500 again. This is not how you do things. Of course, you're taking then a better approach to things, and you learn from these kind of adjustments as well for possible future gaining phases, at least if things and variables and external factors stay the same. Maybe I've forgotten something. I don't know, Steve.
No, I think that was very well said. And I just have an additional thought process to you, Pascal. I wonder if you've personally experienced it with yourself and maybe your clients, because I've had this with quite a few clients, even recently, but just for a long time, where, like you said, a lot of variables in their life haven't really changed, yet they're in a surplus, which you would predict, and from all the back data that you've got, is a good surplus for them to be in, and they're gaining too quickly for maybe 3 weeks. And just because of my coaching experience and with them, I know we don't actually need to make an adjustment, and then all of a sudden they start actually going down, and then it all and when it averages out over maybe 6 weeks, it's like, now that's a decent rate of gain. Have you had it before? It's like you would think to need to make a change, but you're just like, I'm not making a change because I know something is going to, like, waterway is going to somehow work its way out.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. This, and also I can actually give a shout out to Biss because he knows it. He knows it. This is so weird. Whenever we are making an adjustment of just like 100 kilograms, where it's like he's consuming around 2,500, 2,600, and we've seen that the scale weight was just increasing too rapidly, right? Which didn't really make sense, but over like 3 weeks or 4 weeks, we've made an adjustment, brought down the calories by like 100 calories, so not that much, and all of a sudden, he's maintaining, right? Where it's like, okay, something is wrong, and then you look back and be like, okay, and no other variables have changed, right? And thus, it's like, okay, only because he then gained for like 4 weeks just a little bit quicker doesn't mean that it's all then fat related or that the rate of weight gain was inappropriate, because this is where collecting data over the long term comes in so handy. And this is also where working with a coach for a longer period of time is so valuable, because you guys together are collecting data, and the coach can most of the time, because he's not as emotionally invested, remember or look back into the spreadsheet and be like, wait a second, this is what we've done in the past, right? And probably not that much has changed, or a lot has changed, but you won't admit it. So for example, with myself, my maintenance has come down significantly in comparison to when I wasn't working from at home, which is obvious why that is the reason, right? So back in the days, I was commuting a lot with my bike, and now it's like I have to force myself going out on walks, and still I'm not eating as much or maintaining as on much calories as I've done in the past. And this is something that is hard to swallow because food is amazing. And I would love to be the one who is maintaining on something like 3,500 calories, but that's not the case. And this is where also a coach can come into play and be like, I hate to break it to you, but maybe your maintenance isn't 3,500 anymore. Maybe it's now rather 3,200, right? So collecting data over the long period of time comes in so handy, in my opinion, to actually then make the right calls, even if data kind of fools you.
I think it's just so well said. And I remember writing the adipose phobia, fat phobia article ages ago where people are fearing fat gain during a mass. Yeah. And that's something that I fell into the trap of, is like I'd gain too quick, I'd cut calories, and then I'd be not gaining, and then I'd increase them, and I'd be gaining too quick, and it was just mental like masturbation essentially. Yeah. And I'd spin my wheels. And I think I've had loads of clients who unfortunately have suffered the same, and they just look to me, and probably you have it the same, Pascal, and a lot of the coaches who listen to this probably have it the same, where their client is just like, I trust you. If you say we keep things how they are, I will. If it was in my hands, I'd make an adjustment. But you've got the experience, you've got the objective like view over everything. I trust you. And that's why it could be the difference between people making results and not making results if they can't commit to a goal and kind of, for lack of a better phrase, trust the process sometimes.
Especially in a cutting phase, right? Especially in a contest prep. When you're coaching yourself, and you are getting to those nasty levels where it's hard to accept that you may need to reduce the calories because you're already hungry, you're already a little bit, I don't know, moody the entire time, right? Accepting then that you need to reduce the calories and not having someone tell you that, that's very hard. That's very, very challenging, unless you're someone who is like, can take a step away from the food and in that situation, but not that many people can, right? And especially in this situation, it comes in so handy to just have someone at your side who tells you like, this is what we need to do, or rather, what do you need to do?
Yeah, it happens both ways. Some people are so eager to reduce calories, and then you have the other people who are the complete opposite, who are like, no, don't take any away. And that's where the coach can just help so much. So anyway, next question. So I'm Steve Hall, founder of Revive Stronger and a coach of Revive Stronger.
My name is Pascal. I'm the co-owner of Revive Stronger and also a coach, of course.
Revive Stronger has probably been going solidly for 3 years, roughly about 3 years.
Revive Stronger, to me, it is becoming kind of my child, my foster child. It's the gathering and getting together of like-minded people.
We've been expanding the coaching team, which is helping us help more people, but each coach can only help a certain number of people.
Right now, it's all over the place. We have YouTube, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, but there isn't that community aspect behind that.
And so the next step for us is developing a membership site.
So basically, we want to create a family and a community that is then benefiting from another.
A really cool community for people within our little niche is going to be a website.
They will get early access to our podcast.
You can access us, ask us questions.
The community aspect, we have a forum there. You can ask questions, but also you can log your journey.
There's also going to be courses on there.
Courses, presentations on different topics. Discount of past seminar footage. We will log our journey as well. We'll start vlogging.
We're going to have documentaries.
Our entire athletic journey. Furthermore, they get access to an exercise video library.
The exercises that we love for hypertrophy and maximizing hypertrophy, we're going to go through those in depth, telling you how to execute them.
We kept them concise and also mobile friendly so that you can watch them in between your sets.
I'm super excited to grow this community. The amount of value that we're going to be delivering is huge. And I'd love you to be part of it.
You will get so much out of that.
I'll see you inside.
Yeah.
So let's get one from our good man, Andrew Pottercheck.
He has three questions. So we are only picking one, Andrew.
Okay. What one should I go for? Okay, I'm going to go for this one. Have you found prep get easier each time as you know, the habits to fall into and starting leaner each time and just experience it more. Because this prep has been a ton easier for me.
I mean, I can't really say anything about it because I haven't prepped, like properly prepped to stage. So I leave the stage to you, mate.
I will give you some credit though, because as we mentioned before, this has been your smoothest one yet. And we've said how part of that is due to setting yourself up for success, which I think is very true. But part of it, I think you've also mentioned, is just dieting experience. Yeah. And so you've got the habits in check, you've got the tools in place where you can just manage things way better. And I think the saying is experience cures anxiety, and it's completely true. The more times you go through something, you know what to expect, you know what to feel. There's sensations where don't worry you anymore. And I know from having coached first-time competitors, some of the things we feel, they don't like those sensations and they kind of feel wrong and they get worried, but they're quite normal when we kind of discuss through it. And that's what, again, a coach can really come in handy. And I think, for Andrew, it's just he's been through it before. He's gone through that shit before. And the same for me, like every prep does I've only prepped twice even. So the second prep was a mile easier than the first prep. I'm not leaner this time round though, depending on when you consider my true prep beginning, because as we've discussed before, I think I did like a mini cut down to like 170 pounds or something. And then I gained like a couple of pounds, and then I had like 15 pounds at most to get down to stage condition. Oh. So I will eventually be closer to that in a kind of month or so time. But right now, if you consider like I actually had a different approach this time round where I did let my body weight and body fat come up quite a bit more. So again, you're just learning each time.
There was a question just recently, and I just want to bring it up here. Do you feel that pushing up your body weight was beneficial?
For me, I want to say yes. It's actually really interesting. I was saying this to a client who they were like, I haven't gained any muscle over the last like 4 years or something. And I was like, he showed me before and afters and everything. And I was like, just looking at them, I was like, are you looking at the same photos as me? Your delts are bigger, your arms are bigger. You're like 2 kilos heavier and just as lean. And I was saying to him how I've had lots of people, like you've said it to me, clients have said it to me, like I've had it on social media. People tell me I've improved, and I say it that I have improved because I know more objectively I have, but still in my head, I'm like, I'm really not sure I'm going to look that much better. So it's just tricky. You're always going to feel like that. But at the moment, I definitely think moving my body weight up that high was very helpful. I've had some of the best training of my life. I hit some PRs, and I did what Mike talks about in terms of what he says sometimes holds naturals back, is that they get kind of comfortable and they don't push their body weight to new heights. And I'd been to 190 pounds before. I've been there several times in my career. I'd never been above that. So pushing up to 200 was a big deal to me. And I think that probably has put some more muscle tissue on me. We'll see if it paid off. But I didn't take it to the extreme. I think some people, like, you can just tell they've taken it to like Jabba mode or whatever, where they are way above. Because when we look at it, sure, 200 pounds, that's like 40 pounds above my like lowest weigh-in from last prep. But maybe I've gained 5 pounds, maybe 10 pounds, like 10 pounds would be crazy, but maybe I've gained
5 pounds would also be very good if you just imagine that.
It would. Right? So whilst I did push up that high, I think there was a decent amount of muscle that's come with it. And I think I'm going to surprise myself when I get down to the mid 170s. And I think I'm already going to be looking like potentially close to, I don't want to say it because it sounds kind of egoistic and I don't want to say it and it not be true. But I think in the mid 170s, people will think Steve could step on stage and I won't be for another 10 pounds. So like, I'm excited for that. So I do think it will have been beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I just wanted to bring it up because I found it a very interesting question.
I'd only note the other reason I think it was beneficial for me, not just from a physiological aspect, but psychologically. I've always struggled with gaining phases. So accepting that I was going to get softer and I was going to push up, that's just allowed the floodgates to open so I could invest everything into my off season. And I had like some of the best libido, some of the best energy I've ever had in my life. So it was very helpful.
you realize that the world still keeps spinning. And I know that feeling. I know that feeling, that fear of actually going somewhere that is not, first and foremost, you're not feeling that comfortable with, but you've never tried it maybe, or you had bad experiences in the past because you've been at that body weight, right? But at a quite a different body composition in the past. And yeah, just going to for kind of foreign places, or kind of places but you have a bad experience with. So it's like, I don't know, you've been to a country 20 years ago and you got robbed, right? And it was a shit place because of that. Now you're going there, and all of a sudden in 20 years, it has become a lovely, lovely country, economic growth, all that kind of stuff, right? And now it's just like, holy shit, why did I ever think that this is the shittiest place on earth, while in reality, this is actually quite nice here.
Awesome.
Awesome.
I don't really have anything to say. I liked it.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. I was the question asker. So should we pick? Have we got time? Yeah, we've got time for another question.
Yeah.
Let's see. Any of these good ones? Okay, because we're on the prep kind of Q&A type of deal. Let's go with Jake Remmett.
Can I just bring one question up, and that is from Holger Domsky. What's about your hormone levels, Pascal? So just because Holger and I were always talking, especially ever since like 2017, where I got my hormone levels tested, and I've always been like hypogonadal. Ever since then, especially like last year, I didn't check it because I was feeling good. I've just made a baby. So I felt good and stuff like that. So I never felt the reason to actually then test it, because what does it tell me, right? I mean, even if it's slightly below, and even if I'm slightly below or outside the normal physiological range, right, then it doesn't change anything to me right now, because I'm not jumping on TRT now, right? So that's not an option for me. Secondary, what would I do then otherwise, right? Would I stop quitting the training? No, absolutely not. I would still go out, enjoy every single bit and piece of the training. And once again, TRT is not an option right now. It will be possibly in the future, just due to health reasons. But right now, I don't see the necessity for it, because I'm not feeling so shitty as I've done in the past, because in the past there have been times where I was just like, holy shit, what is going on? I think that people who are truly secondary gonadal, hypogonadal in general can attest to that, how shitty of a feeling that is, how much depressive times you have and thoughts you're having, and it comes in massive fluctuations. You're feeling great on one day, the other day you're just like feeling, oh fuck, I can't even step or take a step outside of the door. And right now, it wouldn't have changed anything for me. That's why I didn't see the necessity of actually testing it one more time. But I will definitely take hormone levels one more time, maybe next off season or so, just to see where I'm at. Also because I'm getting closer to the mid-30s, just to get it checked and stuff. And I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah. No, really interesting. And yeah, it's important, because that was a factor for you, and it's improved. And I even think back to, I think it was the first time you were prepping, and it was all the sleep issues that you're having, and like that all corrected itself.
And I thought I was in a good position by then, right? And now looking back in hindsight, we are always wiser in hindsight, always. And looking back in hindsight, I'm just like, why? Well, how could you even consider prepping? That doesn't make sense. Because I was in no shape, and in no situation, like in every way, like sleep, stress, body composition, diet. I was recovering from a surgery, then just everything going on in my life. No way that you should be prepping. And I did it, and I failed miserably. Okay, not miserably, but it had like its effects afterwards.
Yeah. I'm interested. I don't know if I will, but I'm interested to potentially, because I essentially took my bloods not that long ago, like peak mass basically is when I ended up taking them, because I had issues with like my gut and everything, which is completely gone since dieting, as I said it probably would, which I hope it's not just a band-aid on the issue. We'll see. But I'm considering potentially when I go through the primer phase, maybe after like 3 weeks deep, potentially trying to see if I want to take some bloods then, just to see what they are at that level of leanness and see is that a state that I can, like, I don't know, just to get some data. And the important thing I think, like you said there, is I don't want to read into that too much because likelihood is my testosterone is not going to be the best it's ever going to be. So if I see it's low and then I'm like, oh my God, I'm even going to diet further and it's going to be even worse, then it's not going to help me. But I'd just be interested potentially. I might get some data then and then maybe get some, like we've talked about before, like after 6 weeks of kind of recovery and a surplus and gaining back, basically back to that primer phase state where I will have gained another like 10, 15 pounds and then get some after like 3 weeks of the maintenance period there, just to see like how close am I back to where I was and how far am I away from like off season all the way deep off season, just to keep a check on things. Like Broderick talked before, you don't know what's going under the hood a lot of the time. And yeah, I think as a natural, you probably could just get it when you're not feeling great. That could be the way you do it, or you could be a bit proactive and maybe get them a few times a year, which isn't a bad shout, especially now it's fairly easy to do. Cool. So I'll get to Jake's question.
Yes.
He asked, currently doing my first ever prep with my first show planned for late April. Do you guys have any tips for first timers to balance between taking in every moment and fully enjoying the ride, and 2, turning your brain off and putting prep out of your mind so that you don't draw unnecessary attention to the difficult aspects and make things harder on yourself? Interesting, because we've kind of talked about that.
Yeah, exactly. I just wanted to say that you brought it up already, just from a personal example of the way you perceive things and what you're doing at the moment to actually take your mind away from these kind of behaviors and thoughts that you're having, right? So I think that's definitely one way to do it. Other than that, taking in every moment and fully enjoying the ride. I mean, what you're saying is already what you should be striving for then. And this is something that I think no one can tell you how to do it, because everyone perceives it, of course, in a different way. What you find gives you pleasure and joy may be quite different to someone else, right? But if you truly prep because you always wanted to prep, it should already feel like, I don't know, a smooth ride that you're already enjoying, because that's surely what I'm doing at the moment. I find it quite a joyful ride already.
Something I've done with a couple of my guys who are getting closer to stage, Neil and Elias, I think I said it in both their check-ins today, was viewing the difficult times as challenges and viewing them as like opportunities to get better. And when things are hard, that means like beat it. Don't let it beat you down. Like I had it the other day in my head as I was on one of my walks where I was trying to be positive. I was thinking, this ain't, like, I was kind of getting down and I was like, oh, my feet are dragging a bit. And I was like, this is nothing. And I just kind of like picked myself up and I was like, nah, like I've got this. Like, why am I being like, don't get down in the dumps. When you do feel challenged, like embrace it. The body is ridiculously powerful. I mean, this is what inspired me to get into PT in the first place, and with Revive Stronger as my recovery from that initial accident and then taking my body to heights that it's never been before. And I just think the human body is miraculously good. If you give it the right inputs and you do the right outputs, like you can do amazing things you never thought you could do. So yeah, every moment that you're kind of questioning, view it as a challenge and you can beat it. I just think, and you for doing that, then after the prep, you feel like you can do anything, which is so cool.
Absolutely. And this is something that I also wanted to say is just try to imagine or try to look back at your life and whether there are some accomplishments that you're very proud of. And just remember that feeling that you had during that time. And now imagine how it must feel like, or what it will feel like for you stepping on stage and stepping off that stage. And would you then expect that you feel the same way, or even more so because you went through such a physiological and also psychologically demanding time that you actually made it? You've accomplished something that not everyone in the world is accomplishing. Also, just because it's a hard thing to actually do, right? So maybe you're also taking pleasure in actually knowing that you've done something that not everyone is doing. Like, I don't know, just think about stepping on Mount Everest, right? Climbing the Mount Everest. Probably not a privilege that everyone is willing to, or even coming close to experiencing in their life. What a sensation and feeling it must be to have overcome these challenges. And when it comes to these small challenges that are facing you on a daily basis, embrace them, welcome them with open arms, because otherwise you are giving them power and control. I know it sounds always so cheesy to say that, right? But actually do this, right? Be like, hunger, you're my best friend. I know you're here. I know you will stick around. And when you are around, let's make the best of both of our times together, instead of like fighting each other and making the time we spend together even more miserable, because then the time will not pass. You know that, right? When things are just shitty, the time will not pass. But when things are enjoyable, the time passes by too quickly.
What's the meme? It's a meme that's like, but did you die?
Yeah.
And it was just making me think of Mount Everest, because you can legitimately die climbing Mount Everest. Yeah. A lot of people do. Natural bodybuilding, but did you die? You're never going to die doing natural bodybuilding unless you do something stupid with like sodium and potassium and peaking or something crazy like that. But body fat, nah, you're not going to die.
And I find it very compelling thinking about that you're overcoming your psychological barriers, because what bodybuilding is, getting to those levels of leanness, is just in your head. Just in your head.
And I think, to give it there's probably been an advert, hasn't there, for the membership site. But I think having that community now, and I know we've always had, and we have a community, our listeners here, via the Instagram, via our Facebook group, but having that really close-knit community in there, I'm already drawing benefits from that, because people are already asking questions and they're surrounding you, and I'm seeing other people who have been through preps and I can ask them and about their experiences, and having that group is just so lovely and it builds yourself up. And I think I'll end up enjoying prep even more because of having that community there. And I think you don't need the member site. You just want people around you and you want to surround yourself by others. I think oftentimes we can keep ourselves in our own little hole and be tempted not to share and not tell how things are going. But I think when you do share, I think you just get so much more from it. So that's only an additional point, I would say. We've probably come to time, haven't we? Oh, I have one more thing.
1 hour.
One more thing.
Go ahead.
And I'm going to, again, promote Andrew with our discussion. I just took a note from him of how much he loves his time on stage. And I don't not love my time on stage by any means, but this time round, I'm going to take so much more pride in my package and what I'm taking to stage and my posing routine and everything. I just want to make it polished, really cool. I want to get it on film, and because those are your best trophies, are the kind of the videos, the photos that you've got from presenting your art on stage. And I am saying it now, and I really hope I follow through with this. That I really want people to look at me on stage and be like, oof, like, maybe I don't win. Maybe I don't kind of do anything special, but damn, that guy knows how to show off his physique to the best of his ability. Oh. That I took from Andrew, because he's obviously a great poser. So yeah, I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, and because kind of this show was all about loving or having a passion in bodybuilding, right? And taking it to stage and enjoying the ride, but at the same time, not taking things too seriously, because it is bodybuilding after all. We can still love it and take it seriously, but at the same time, we are not going to war. We are not dying because of bodybuilding, unless we are once, again, as you rightly pointed out, so doing some irresponsible things. And thus, it is a privilege. It is a luxury that we are in a position where we can diet like to those levels of leanness, right? Whereas other people in the world, they have nothing, right? Nothing. And we then fight over something like bodybuilding, and whether we take things to failure or volume and stuff like that. And we truly fight about these things, which is just, once again, a proof of our state, or the state that we are in, the luxury we are living in, right? So that we are Maslow's hierarchy. I bring it up all the time, that we are at the top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, because this is what our society is, right? That doesn't mean that our problems are less worth it than other problems or less severe, but let's always keep that in mind.
And on that note, thank you guys for listening.
That's it.
Cheers, guys. Cheers, guys. Take care.